Good day, everyone. Now, we were going to tackle about Robert Gagne, learning and instruction. So, who is Robert Gagne? Okay. Robert Mills Gagne was an American educational psychologist best known for his conditions of learning. He pioneered the science of instruction during World War II when he worked with the Army Air Corps training pilots. He was born on August 21, 1916, and died on April 28, 2002. He was also born in North Andover, Massachusetts, and then co-developer of instructional systems design. He wrote The Conditions of Learning in 1965, then co-wrote Principles of Instructional Design. Gagne is considered to be an experimental psychologist who is concerned with learning and instruction. He is known for the skills hierarchy, which presents simple skills and build to complex ones. His learning theory is summarized as the Gagne assumption, which consists of 5 types of learning and 9 events of instruction. So, Gagne's taxonomy consists of 5 categories of learning outcomes, which is number 1 is verbal information, number 2 is intellectual skills, number 3 is cognitive strategies, attitudes, and the last one is motor skills. Gagne, Briggs, and Wager in 1992 explained that each of the categories leads to the different class of human performance. Number 1 of the 5 categories of learning outcomes is verbal information, which is learner can state what has been learned. Number 2 is intellectual skills. It is composed of concrete and defined concept. Learner can discriminate between facts, can identify colors, and can follow directions. Then number 3 is cognitive strategies, which is learner can read books. Then number 4 is motor skills. Learner can use a mouse or joystick. And the last one is attitudes. Learner prefers reading to watching TV. Gagne also developed 3 principles that he felt was integral for successful instruction. Number 1 is providing learning guidance, providing instruction and the set component tasks that build toward a final task. Like for example, role-playing for visualization of application. The number 2 is eliciting performance. Ensure component task is mastered. Like for example, giving tasks and quizzes. Then the last one, number 3, providing feedback. Sequencing the component task to ensure the optimal transfer to the final task.
So let's now proceed to the 9 events of instruction to learning by Robert Gagne. When the events of instruction occur, internal learning processes take place that led to various learning outcomes. The events of instruction constitute a set of communications to the student which have the aim of aiding the learning process. Instruction consists of a set of events external to the learner designed to support the internal processes of learning. So the first event of instruction is gaining attention, which is giving learner a stimulus to ensure reception of coming instruction. For the first event, teachers should ensure that the learners are ready to learn and participate in activities by presenting a stimulus to capture their attention. There are few methods of capturing learners' attention. Teachers can stimulate students with novelty, uncertainty, and surprise, or pose thought-provoking questions to students that will encourage them to answer and share their thoughts to the class. Also, have students pose questions to be answered by other students. And lastly, which is most commonly used by everyone, is lead an icebreaker activity. So this activity is also what we call drill in making a lesson plan. So the second one is informing the learner of the objective, telling learner what they will be able to do for the instruction. So in this event, Teacher inform students of the objectives or outcomes of the course and individual lessons to help them understand what they are expected to learn and do. Provide objectives before instruction begins. So objectives should consist all the three domains, which are cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. And there are some methods for stating the outcomes. Teachers can describe the required performance. Teachers can describe criteria for standard performance or have learners establish criteria for standard performance and include course objectives on assessment prompts. So the third one is stimulating recall of prior learning. This is asking for recall of existing relevant knowledge. So in this part, teachers will help students make sense of new information by relating it to something they already know or something they have already experienced. That's why in most cases, when a teacher is conducting a lesson, it is important to have a review before proceeding to another topic. So there are numerous methods for stimulating a recall. You can ask questions about previous experiences, ask students about their understanding of previous concepts or topic. You can relate previous course information to the current topic or have students incorporate prior learning into current activities. The fourth one is presenting the stimulus or displaying the content. This is the part where teachers use strategies to present and cue lesson content to provide more effective instruction. Organized and group content in meaningful ways, and provide explanations after demonstrations. So, this is what we call the lesson proper. To make the presentation more engaging and powerful, teachers use ways to present and cue lesson content like present multiple versions of the same content like video, demonstration, lecture, podcast, group work, and many more. Also, teachers can use a variety of media to engage students in learning. And most importantly, teachers incorporate active learning strategies to keep students involved. Lastly, if it is in a face-to-face situation, teachers can provide access to content on Blackboard so students can access it outside of class. The fifth one is providing learner guidance. So this is applying organization and relevance to enhance understanding. Therefore, teachers advise students of strategies to aid them in learning content and of resources available. In other words, teachers help students learn how to learn. To make the learning process collaboratively engaging, teachers can use methods for providing learning guidance. For example, provide instructional support as needed, like scaffolding that can be removed slowly as the student learns and masters the task or content. Another one is model varied learning strategies, where teachers can use and apply mnemonics, concept mapping, role playing, and even visualizing. Moreover, teachers can also establish the usage of examples and non-examples. Examples help students see what to do, while non-examples help students see what not to do. Lastly, teachers may provide case studies, visual images, analogies, and metaphors. So, case studies provide real-world application. Visual images assist in making visual associations, and analogies and metaphors are familiar content to help students connect with new concepts. So the sixth one is eliciting performance, or asking learners to respond, demonstrating learning. In this part, teachers will practice what students have learned from the class. Teachers can have students apply what they have learned to reinforce new skills and knowledge and to confirm correct understanding of course concepts. So there are a few ways to activate learner processing. First is facilitate student activities like ask deep learning questions, or have students collaborate with their peers, or facilitate practical laboratory exercises. Another way is to provide formative assessment opportunities like written assignments, individual or group projects, and presentations. Last but not the least is to design effective quizzes and tests, like teachers can test students in ways that allow them to demonstrate their comprehension and application of course concepts, as opposed to simply memorization and recall. The seventh one is providing feedback or giving immediate feedback on learners' performance. So it is important to provide timely feedback of students' performance to assess and facilitate learning and to allow students to identify gaps in understanding before it is too late. So there are some types of feedback that teachers may provide to students. First is confirmatory feedback, which informs the learners that they did what they were supposed to do. This type of feedback does not tell the student what she needs to improve, but it encourages the learner. The second one is evaluative feedback, apprises the student of the accuracy of their performance or response, but does not provide guidance on how to progress. The third one is remedial feedback. It directs students to find the correct answer but does not provide the correct answer. The next one, the fourth one, is descriptive or analytic feedback, which provides the student with suggestions, directives, and information to help them improve their performance. And the last one is peer evaluation and self-evaluation, which help learners identify learning gaps and performance shortcomings in their own and peers' work. So the eighth one is assessing performance or assessing and providing feedback to learners. So in this part, teachers will test whether the expected learning outcomes have been achieved on previously stated course objectives. So some methods for testing learning include the following, like administer pre and post tests to check for progression of competency in content or skills. Next is embed formative assessment opportunities throughout instruction using oral questioning, like another one is short active learning activities or quizzes. Next is implement a variety of assessment methods to provide students with multiple opportunities to demonstrate proficiency. And the last one is craft objective, effective rubrics to assess written assignments, projects, or presentations. And the last event of instruction is enhancing retention and transfer. This is providing diverse practice to generalize the capability. So, in this event of instruction, teachers help learners retain more information by providing them opportunities to connect course concepts to potential real-world applications. So the following are methods to help learners internalize new knowledge. First is avoid isolating course content. Associate course concepts with prior and future concepts and build upon prior and preview future learning to reinforce connections. The second one is continually incorporate questions from previous tests in subsequent examinations to reinforce course information. The third one is have students convert information learned in one format into another format, like verbal or visual or spatial. For instance, requiring students to create a concept map to represent connections between ideas. And the last one is to promote deep learning, clearly articulate your lesson goals, use your specific goals to guide your instructional design, and align learning activities to lesson goals. Therefore, Gagne's 9 events of instruction can help teachers build a framework to prepare and deliver instructional content while considering and addressing conditions for learning. Ideally, teachers should prepare course goals and learning objectives before implementing the 9 events. The goals and objectives will help situate the events in their proper context. The 9 events of instruction can then be modified to fit both the content and students' level of knowledge.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Ella Michelle Tiotohot, and for my report for today, I will be talking about the 8 conditions of learning by Robert Gagne. So, the 8 conditions of learning hierarchy. In this hierarchy of learning, you must master each step before reaching the next. This requires greater amounts of learning for each level. The lowest 4 orders tend to focus on the more behavioral aspects of learning, while the highest 4 focus on the more cognitive aspects. So these are the 8 conditions of learning. 1 is the signal learning, 2 is the stimulus response learning, 3 the chain learning, 4 the verbal association, the 5 is discrimination learning, 6 concept learning, 7 rule learning, and last but not least, the 8 is the problem solving. So let's go to the first condition of learning, the signal learning. The signal learning is the simplest form of learning. It is also known as the classical conditioning. In this type of learning, the animal or individual acquires a conditioned response to a given signal. The subject is conditioned to emit the desired response as a result of a stimulus that would not normally produce that response. It is learning by association, and it is a complete behavioral psychology. So in the signal learning, we are talking about the signal. As you can see on the screen, signal learning is a learning by association. I will give you an example. In a noisy classroom, the teacher suddenly goes quiet and the students also gets quiet. So, if we talk about the signal learning, the signal here is that the teacher suddenly goes quiet. So, imagine you are in a noisy classroom and your teacher becomes quiet and suddenly stop talking. That's the signal there. The teacher suddenly goes quiet. It really means that the teacher wants the student to get quiet. And the students get that signal. The student learn the signal from their teacher, so they immediately goes quiet. So that is the signal learning. The teacher is associating the signal to the student, so that is learning by association. Remember that the signal learning is the simplest form of learning and it's known as the classical conditioning. Now, the second is the stimulus response learning. Stimulus response learning, also known as operant conditioning or the instrumental conditioning, a learning process in which behavior is sensitive to or controlled by its consequences, a response to a given stimulus, and learning through reinforcement. And again, it is behavioral psychology. So in the stimulus response learning, it is the response to the given stimulus. Or, diba, we are talking about signal learning a while ago. And for the stimulus response learning, it is the response to that given stimulus or the given signal. So, for example, the teacher instructs the students to raise their hands. So, the students immediately raise their hands. So, the stimulus response learning is it is the response given by the students to what is being asked to them. Diba? So, for example, again, if a teacher instructs you to raise your hand, so the students or you will immediately raise your hands because you you learn the signal, you learn the information given to you. So you respond to it in the same moral or condition, and that is a response to a given stimulus. That is behavioral because you are acting. Okay? Now, for the third one, we have the chain learning. A chain learning is a more advanced form of learning in which the subject develops the ability to connect two or more previously learned stimulus response pawn into a linked sequence. It is linking two or more stimulus response connection to form more complex skills, and it is behavioral. So, for example, a child learning to wash his or her hands independently may start with learning to turn on the faucet. Once this initial skill is learned, the next step may be to get his or her hands, get a soap, wash his or her hands, and wipe the hands after washing it. So that is the chain learning. Imagine a chain, di ba? It is linked to each other. That is a chain learning. You are linking two or more stimulus response to form a more complex skills. Example, di ba? The first step in washing a hand is to turn on the faucet because you need water. And when you turn on the faucet, you connect the second step, and that is to get your hands on the water, get a soap after, wash your hands, and then wipe your hands after washing it. That is the chain learning. You are doing something, doing a task, doing a skill by process, by linking the steps. Okay? That is the chain learning. Now, we have the verbal association. Verbal association is a form of chaining in which the links between items being connected are verbal in nature. It is linking two or more words or ideas, and it is behavioral. Okay, for example, when a child names an object ball, it also says round ball, black, or white ball. So, okay ha? Um, so for a verbal association, it talks about linking two or more words and ideas. It is from your brain to verbally associating with people. So, verbal association is that you think of something and then you say it verbally. Um, it is like for the example, no, when a child names an object, like example for a ball, iniisip niya, the child thinks that he sees a round ball or a color black ball or a white ball or a red ball. Um, that idea is in the brain of the child, but he or she associated it to verbal in which she or he talks about it. No? So, from your brain, you associated it with verbal, so now you are talking, and by that, you are forming a chain that links between your brain to your mouth. So, that is the connection between the ideas to the words. Okay, I hope you understand. Now, for the discrimination learning. This involves developing the ability to make appropriate or different responses to a series of similar stimuli that differ in a systematic way. This involves the development of the ability to differentiate an object by its color, shape, etc., responding in different ways to different items in a set, and it is behavioral. So, for example, when a student developed the ability to differentiate and call each student by his or her correct name. So, discrimination learning is that a child knows how to discriminate or knows how to differentiate things, names, or etc. that um, that talks about um, choosing different differentiating objects or colors, shapes, or whatever it is. You are given a choice, and that's how you discriminate things. Not discrimination by judging, but discrimination by differentiating things in a systematic way. I will give you another example. Example, you are in a tea party. The host is providing the guests, including you, lots of lots of kinds of teacups. There are porcelain mugs, there are china cups with decorations, there are paper cups, there are plastic cups, a lot of cups with different types and kinds. And when we are talking about discrimination learning, because you are given a choice of what to pick, what mug to pick, you are highly, I think you are highly choose the china cup with decorations because um, in that set of cups, including the paper cups, the plastic cups, the porcelain cups, the china cups with decoration, or the plain cups, you might choose the good one, which is the china cups with decorations, because you think that it is the right thing to choose because it is fancy, it is cute. And when you have that cup, you might feel a little bit fancy or a little elegant because in a tea party, your cup is very your cup is very attractive, no? So that is the discrimination learning. You are able to differentiate things to um to pick or choose from the different items in a set, and you are responding to a similar stimuli that differs in a systematic way. So, for the example here on the screen, as a student, you develop an ability to differentiate the names of your classmates. So, no, that is discrimination learning. You know this thing is different from this thing. That is the discrimination learning. Okay, now for the concept learning. This involves developing the ability to make a consistent response to different stimuli that forms a common class or category of some sort. It is reacting to stimuli in an abstract way, and it is behavioral to cognitive psychology. No, before we are just talking about behavioral, but now it now falls to cognitive. So it has the behavioral aspects, but also the cognitive aspect which we use our brain. So for example, while driving a car, one must start with the clutch gear and then slowly release the clutch and raise the accelerator. And also something happened and you just shrug your shoulders. So that is the concept learning. It is something a person is learning with the natural concept or the common concept, no? Example, di ba? You are driving a car. A normal way of driving a car is you start it with a clutch. The next thing you do in a common way of driving a car is the gear, and then you slowly release the clutch and raise the accelerator to start the car automatically. That is the common concept of driving a car. So that is the concept learning. You are developing the ability to do a task by learning the common way of doing that. That is the concept learning. And um, in the screen, we can see that it is reacting to stimuli in an abstract way. So, abstract, it means you can't see the idea. Abstract, you can't understand it in one go. Abstract is like a painting without a without a main concept. That when you see a painting of the dog, you immediately identify it as an animal. But when we talk about abstract, we see lots of colors, different shade styles. That is an abstract. So something happened and you just shrug your shoulders. Example, there is an accident and a person asks you, what is your emotion or what is your reaction? And you just shrug your shoulders. But in your brain, there are some ideas, there are some reactions that you want to say, but you reacted in an abstract way. You just shrug your shoulder because mainly you want to say that I don't care, or I really don't know what happened, so I can't I don't know what to react. So that is the concept learning. Okay. Now for the rule learning. Rule learning is a very high level cognitive process. It involves being able to learn relationships between concepts and apply these relationships in different situations, including situations not previously encountered. It is training two or more a stimulus situation rather, or concept. It is also behavioral to cognitive. So the rule learning, we are talking about rules. So when a child is learning, he or she must know the rules. Example, in order to do a task, a student will be in touch with some past or present rules. Example, you are being tasked to do an essay. So in a rule learning, a student will think about how to do the essay. That is the first step. First rule on how to do an essay is first to create a title. That is the first rule in doing an essay, right? You need to compose your title. The next one is to produce your introduction, because in an essay you need to open up your mind. You need to express, you need to introduce your main concept, your main essay, no? And follow up, introduction, the main body, and the conclusion. That is the rule. No? So by learning, the students um, needs to remember the rules of doing things, like what I just said, like just right now. That is the rule learning. No, we are bound to do rules to be able to do a new task or a new concept, and that is behavioral to cognitive because we are using our brain. Now, last but not the least is the problem solving. Okay, the highest level of cognitive process according to Gagne. Okay, um, back to my first to the first condition of learning, the signal learning, that is the simplest form, but the problem solving now is the highest level of cognitive process. It also involves developing the ability to invent a complex rule or algorithm or procedure for the purpose of solving one particular problem, and then using the method to solve other problems of a similar nature. It is combining known rules principles into new situation to solve a problem. It is mainly a cognitive. So now in a problem solving, the students first um, needs to know that there is a problem, because you can solve a problem if you think that that is not a problem. To solve a problem, you need a problem itself. So no, in a problem solving, it involves rules, algorithms, procedure to solve a particular problem. Example, you are given a task or a problem. Um, Example, um, you need to solve a puzzle. or a math problem. Okay, example 1 plus 1. In order to solve 1 plus 1, a child needs to remember some rules. Um, because it talks about addition, we are talking about the plus sign. And the rule to that is that you need to add numbers. So 1, adding 1, and you add 1, that is 2. So that is the rule. No, that is the concept. That is the procedure. And when you combine the rules or the principle of adding, you will solve a problem. No? The rule is to add this number to this number, and it equalizes to a solution which is 2. No? That is the problem solving. You need to link, or you need to remember the rules or principle in order to solve a problem. You need to use your cognitive or your brain. So, again, that is the 8 conditions of learning, 8 learning, 8 conditions of learning. So, I hope you understand my topic for today. And again, I am Ella Michelle Tiotot, together with my group mates, Hannah Mihalop and Roslyn Labadat. Thank you!